I'm Conrad Monroe, a 29-year-old guy living in Portland, Oregon. My life isn't anything special, just an ordinary postal worker who gets up early every morning, drinks black coffee with no sugar, and trudges through the damp streets to work. I like Portland for its year-round chill, the scattered golden leaves on the trees, and the light drizzle that seems to wash everything clean. Truth be told, though, my days feel like a boring loop. Wake up, go to work, come home, sleep, repeat. No girlfriend, no close friends, just the occasional phone call from my mom out in the suburbs. My dad, well, I'd rather not talk about him. He always made me feel like a burden. Every morning, the route from my apartment to the parking lot forces me to cut through Selwood Park. It's a quiet patch of green in the middle of the city. Stone-paved paths, a small pond, a few weathered benches. I always slow down when I pass through here. Maybe because it's the only moment in the day when I actually feel alive instead of just existing. The morning air in Selwood always smells of damp earth and decaying leaves mixed with the chirping of sparrows in the branches. I walk slowly, breathing deeply, trying to forget the stack of bills and the pressure from work. The parking lot is on the far side of the park where I leave the old postal van. It takes about 10 minutes to cross, but I like it that way. It helps me brace myself for another long day pushing mail from door to door. And then, from a distance, I see him again. That boy. Milo Sutton, 12 years old. A homeless kid whose name I learned from a few scattered conversations. He's huddled on the same old bench under the huge ancient oak tree, its massive trunk shielding him from the early morning wind like a protective old man. Seeing him there has become so familiar that if he ever wasn't there one morning, I'd actually worry. Milo wears a tattered hoodie with torn sleeves and sneakers whose soles are completely worn through. He sits curled up, arms wrapped tightly around his knees, messy brown hair half covering his thin face. I don't know where he came from, just vague bits he's mentioned about his parents abandoning him when he was little and him living on the streets around the park for a few years now. Portland has plenty of homeless people, but Milo is different. He's not the mischievous or troublesome type. He's just pitiful. Truly pitiful, with those big round eyes that still look at the world with innocent wonder. I stop in front of the bench, as has become our routine over the past few months. "Hey, kid, how's it going today?" I ask gently, trying not to startle him. Milo looks up, his eyes bright under the weak sunlight filtering through the leaves. He never begs for money. That's what I respect about him. He'll accept whatever someone offers, but he never asks. "I'm okay, Mr. Conrad," he answers softly, his voice so polite it warms my heart. I pull a rolled-up dollar bill from my pocket and hand it to him. "Here, get yourself some breakfast." Milo bows his head in thanks, his small hand trembling slightly as he takes it. "Thank you. You're really kind." Those gentle, shining eyes seem to hold a whole untouched world. One that life's cruelty hasn't managed to tarnish yet. Every time I look into them, I feel a pang of sorrow. For a kid who has to face the biting cold of the streets, nights curled up under awnings, meals that depend entirely on strangers' kindness. We meet like this every morning, forming a quiet but warm little rhythm. In my own unsteady life, bills piling up, pressure from the boss, quiet loneliness. Milo is the only bright spot. He reminds me of myself as a child when things were simpler. We don't talk much, just a few questions. "It's cold today. Are you warm enough? Or have you eaten?" Milo smiles and tells me little stories about the squirrels in the park or the old lady who sometimes gives him bread. Those brief moments mean something. I'm not rich, but that dollar every morning is my small way of helping his life. And he, with his gentle smile, helps mine in return. That day started like any other. I left the park, got in the van, and began my shift. Postal work isn't always easy, especially in the rainy season when mail gets soaked and customers get cranky. But that day, everything piled up. A huge batch of packages from online retailers arrived and the boss demanded overtime. "Conrad, stick around, okay? We need to get all this mail out before we close." I nodded without complaining. Overtime pay was something I needed, to cover living expenses and help family. I worked nonstop, sorting, labeling, loading the truck. Time flew by, the sun set, and Portland sank into the pale glow of streetlights. It was past 9 p.m. when I finally packed up. Shoulders aching, back sore, all I wanted was to go home, take a hot shower, and collapse into bed. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. The message alert sounded loud in the empty office, startling me. Who would text this late? I don't have many friends and Mom usually calls. I pulled out the phone. The screen lit up in the darkness, an unknown number and a short message. Don't go home tonight. My heart started pounding. The words were simple, but they carried a strange weight, like a warning whispered from the shadows. I stared at the screen, trying to make sense of it. Wrong number? A prank. But Portland isn't really the place for that kind of joke. I immediately called back, my hand shaking slightly. It rang a few times, then a small, familiar voice answered, the voice I instantly recognized as Milo's. Milo? Is that you? I asked, my voice higher than usual. How did he have my number? Then I remembered. I'd given it to him a few weeks ago, telling him to call if he ever needed help. But at this hour, and that message. Conrad, please don't go home tonight, Milo whispered, his voice trembling, urgent, like he was fighting back fear. Please, just stay at a hotel or something. I'll explain everything tomorrow. I promise. What are you talking about? Why? What's going on? I fired off questions, stepping out of the office into the biting night wind. The post office is on the outskirts. Everything around was dead silent except for the howling wind. I can't say right now, but you have to trust me. Don't go home. It's dangerous. His voice cracked. He sounded on the verge of tears. I could hear the wind whistling through the phone. He was probably outside, huddled somewhere in the park. I stood silent for a moment, mind spinning. Milo wasn't the kind of kid who played pranks. The boy I knew was honest and sincere. He'd never lied, not even once. That message carried real weight, a bad feeling that made my skin prickle and the hair on my arms stand up. Was someone watching me? Or was I just imagining things? My life is so ordinary, it's boring. Who would want to hurt me? But Milo's voice, it was too real to ignore. Okay, kid, I'll stay at a hotel. Meet you in the park tomorrow? I said, forcing my voice to stay calm. Yes? Thank you for trusting me, Milo whispered, then hung up. I stood in the dark parking lot, heart racing. The decision felt ridiculous. Checking into a hotel because of a text from a homeless kid? But my gut screamed to listen. I got in the car, drove toward my neighborhood, and picked the cheapest motel I could find, an old place with a flickering neon sign. Single room one night, I told the sleepy clerk. The room smelled musty, but I didn't care. I lay on the bed staring at the ceiling, mind in chaos. What had Milo seen? Why was he so scared? I had no idea that this decision, this seemingly irrational, fear-driven choice, had just saved my life. That night, while I tossed and turned in a motel room, something terrible was happening at my apartment, and everything was about to change forever. The next morning, I woke up in the cramped motel room, my head still buzzing as if the night had been nothing but restless chaos. Weak sunlight slipped through the thin curtains, falling across the dusty, worn-out floor. I lay there for a while, trying to gather my thoughts. Sleep had been fitful at best. Fragmented dreams of Milo curled up in the park, mixed with that strange text message looping endlessly in my mind. Don't go home tonight. Those words hovered like a warning from another world. Was I just being paranoid? Milo was only a 12-year-old homeless kid. How could he possibly know anything about my life? But the trembling in his voice on the phone, it was too real to brush off. I sat up, rubbed my temples, feeling exhausted after the overtime shift and a sleepless night. The clock on the nightstand read 7 a.m., earlier than usual, but I couldn't stay in bed any longer. Out of habit, I grabbed the TV remote, hoping the morning news might help clear my head. The screen flickered on, the anchor's voice filling the room. Typical Portland weather, chilly with light drizzle. Then local headlines. I was about to get up and make coffee with the cheap machine in the corner when the image on the screen froze me in place. A raging fire filled the screen, bright orange flames devouring an apartment building under the cover of night. The camera panned over blackened rubble, thick smoke billowing into the sky. The anchor mentioned a fire in the Selwood area. And then the address. The exact address of the place I'd lived for the past 3 years. My heart stopped. A large fire broke out at 247 Elm Street, Selwood, around midnight. Preliminary reports suggest a gas leak was the cause. Fortunately, there were no casualties. I couldn't hear the rest. My heart plummeted into an icy void, cold spreading from my chest through my whole body. No way. That was my home. My home. I grabbed my jacket from the chair, didn't even bother putting on shoes, and bolted out of the room. The door slammed behind me as I sprinted down the stairs and through the dark hallway. My pulse thundered in my ears, breath coming in ragged gasps. Outside, Portland's cold wind whipped my face, but all I felt was raw fear surging with every step. I ran barefoot through familiar streets, soles slapping wet pavement, mind in chaos. If I'd gone home last night, would I be dead right now? What did Milo know? Why did he warn me? The questions spun wildly, pushing me to run faster, as if I could outrun the nightmare. Selwood is usually peaceful in the mornings. Golden leaves on the trees, the smell of fresh bread from the nearby bakery. But today, everything was different. From blocks away, I could hear the fading wail of fire trucks and smell the acrid stench of smoke hanging in the air. When I arrived, the whole area was cordoned off with bright yellow tape, police officers standing guard at every corner. I stopped, gasping for breath, and then I saw it. My little apartment, the only place I'd called home for 3 years, was now just a pile of blackened ash. Walls collapsed, window frames charred to coal, the roof a jagged mess of debris. Smoke still drifted lazily upward, and puddles from the fire hoses pooled on the ground. I stood frozen, feet rooted to the spot. A sharp pain twisted in my chest like someone was squeezing my heart. Everything I'd worked for, the old couch I bought at a flea market, the family photos on the wall, my work notebook, even the cheap coffee maker, was gone, reduced to unrecognizable ruin. I'd poured years of sweat into making that place a refuge from my lonely life. And now, everything erased in a single night. Tears stung my eyes, but I forced them back. A gentle hand touched my shoulder. I turned and saw Mrs. Graceland, my kind elderly neighbor, the one who always chatted with me when I delivered her mail. She was about 70, white hair in a neat bun, always wearing her plaid cardigan. Her face was lined with worry, eyes warm with sympathy, like she was looking at a son in distress. "Conrad, oh my goodness, you're so lucky. You weren't home last night, were you? Thank God you're safe." I nodded, voice choked. "Graceland, what happened?" I had no idea. She squeezed my hand tightly, voice trembling as she recounted everything. Around midnight, a massive explosion had shaken the quiet neighborhood, like a bomb going off. Then flames erupted, lighting up the sky. The whole block woke in panic, people running into the street, dogs barking, sirens screaming as fire trucks arrived. She described it vividly, as if reliving the moment. The fire spread so fast, Conrad. From the kitchen to the living room, everything was engulfed. I called 911 right away, but by the time they got here, your place was almost gone. Thank goodness it didn't spread to the other units. According to her, the fire was contained in time and no one was hurt. She spoke gently, trying to comfort me, but it only made me shake harder. I had come within inches of death. If it weren't for Milo's message, I'd be lying in those ashes right now, burned beyond recognition. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice breaking. Mrs. Graceland hugged me, then shook her head sadly. "Where on earth were you that you got so lucky? Your place is completely gone. Do you need anything? You can stay at my house." I shook my head, thanked her again, and stood there in silence, staring at the ruins. The smell of smoke still hung heavy, drifting like a grim reminder of the tragedy. I thought of small memories, the favorite coffee mug, the letter from Mom last year, the book I was halfway through, all gone. The pain was overwhelming, but underneath it was fear. This wasn't a random accident. Milo knew something. A little while later, once I'd managed to pull myself together, at least on the outside, I headed straight to the nearest police station. My legs felt like lead, but I needed answers. The station was just a few blocks away, a gray building with an American flag out front. I walked in. The air was cold and smelled of paper and burnt coffee. A young officer named Ramirez took me at the desk. "I'm Conrad Monroe. I said, voice still shaky. My apartment on Elm Street. It burned down last night. I need to know what happened. He nodded and led me to a private room. They confirmed everything immediately. The fire was reported at 1 a.m. Preliminary cause, a gas leak. He spoke professionally, but with sympathy. These things happen more often than you'd think, Mr. Monroe. Old pipes, a small leak, a spark from the stove, it goes up fast. I sat there listening, feeling hollow. I told them I hadn't been home because of a sudden errand and asked for more details. They showed me photos of the scene, ashes, the blackened stove, and it sent chills down my spine. Then they took my statement. They asked everything. My gas usage habits. I always turned off the stove carefully and checked the valves weekly. Personal info, single, lived alone, and what I remembered before leaving the apartment the last time. I left at 6 a.m. yesterday. Everything was normal, I said, trying to recall every tiny detail. Any strange people around the building? I shook my head. Then suddenly Milo's face flashed in my mind. The interview lasted nearly an hour. Forms, signatures, and finally they said they'd follow up if anything new came up. We'll be in touch if we learn more, Mr. Monroe. We're very sorry for your loss. When I stepped back outside, I felt empty, like my soul had been drained. Portland's drizzle soaked through my jacket, cold rain on my skin, but I barely noticed. It was as if my entire life had been turned upside down in one night, and I had no idea why. I wandered the streets, mind in turmoil. House burned, narrow escape, Milo's warning. How did it all connect? I thought of my family. How worried Mom would be if she knew. Dad would probably just scold me for being careless. I stopped under an awning, breathing deeply, trying to sort out my thoughts. Suddenly, Milo's message flashed in my mind, his trembling voice on the phone, the desperate plea, "Don't go home tonight." Instinct told me the kid had seen something real, something that wasn't random. I couldn't wait any longer. I turned and headed straight for Selwood Park, where Milo usually sat. I hoped he hadn't left yet in the morning cold. The streets leading to the park were so familiar I could walk them blind. Old oak trees stood motionless in the rain, wet golden leaves plastered to the path. Selwood Park in the morning is usually peaceful. A few joggers, people walking dogs, but today the air felt heavier, as if the whole city shared my unease. My heart pounded as I approached the bench under the giant oak, the spot where Milo always curled up. From a distance I saw the small figure. He was still there, arms wrapped tightly around his knees, wet hair covering half his face. A wave of relief washed over me, mixed with growing worry. Milo wasn't the kind of kid who imagined things, and if he warned me, there had to be a reason. When I appeared in front of him, Milo flinched slightly, as if caught doing something wrong. His eyes dropped, avoiding mine. He'd known I'd come. "Milo, I'm here," I said softly, sitting beside him on the freezing bench. "You know something, don't you? The fire at my place. You saved my life." He looked up, big round eyes filled with fear, but also a hint of relief. The rain kept falling, a steady curtain of sound shielding us from the outside world. Milo glanced around nervously, then quietly pulled me behind a thick cluster of bushes. It was damp and dark, the smell of wet earth heavy, but at least no one could overhear. Only then did he dare speak, voice small and shaking. "Conrad, I'm really scared, but I have to tell you." I nodded, forcing calm even though my heart was racing. "Go ahead, kid. I'm listening." Milo took a deep breath, hands clenched together for courage. He began, voice breaking as he relived the moments. "For the past few days, I've been seeing a strange man hanging around your building. He definitely doesn't belong in the neighborhood, I'm sure of it. He'd just stand there staring at your apartment, then leave. The first time I thought he was lost, but then I saw him every day. I knew something wasn't right." A chill ran down my spine. "Selwood is quiet. Strangers stand out. Someone watching my place?" Milo continued, voice even quieter. "It felt wrong, so I took some photos from a distance. I used this old phone the guy at the repair shop near the park gave me. He's nice, lets me charge it, and sometimes gives me leftover food. I pictured it. A homeless 12-year-old hiding in the shadows, secretly snapping pictures. It made me feel both heartbroken and terrified for him. Milo pulled the cracked, battered phone from his pocket and opened the gallery. The photos were blurry, taken from afar. A middle-aged man in a dark coat standing a few yards from my building, staring straight at my windows. His face wasn't clear, but the way he lurked was unmistakable. Milo whispered, "He showed up 3 or 4 times, Conrad. I think he was watching you." But there was more. The day before yesterday, I went to the little diner near the park for lunch. The owner gave me leftovers. That man was sitting in the corner with someone else. I sat right nearby, and nobody pays attention to a ragged kid like me. I heard everything they said. His instincts had kicked in. He'd started recording on his phone and even managed to take a few sneaky photos through a gap. My pulse quickened as I listened. Milo, a 12-year-old street kid, had sharper instincts than most adults. He pressed play. 2 men's voices crackled through the tiny speaker, low and muffled. "Make sure it's done right. No traces. That apartment. Tonight." One voice sounded vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place it. Milo took a shaky breath, voice trembling harder. "The night of the fire, I was curled up under an awning a few houses down from yours. It was freezing. I couldn't sleep. Then I saw a man completely covered, head to toe, carrying a can like a gas can, sneaking toward your building. It was pitch black, streetlights flickering, so Milo couldn't see the face clearly, but the build and the way he moved matched the man who'd been lurking for days." His voice broke with fear. "I didn't know exactly what was happening, but my gut told me it was bad. I got so scared I sent you that text right away." Ice poured through my veins. This wasn't a gas leak like the police said. This was deliberate arson, and I was the target. Someone wanted me dead. The rain outside grew heavier, as if trying to drown everything. "Let me see all the photos on your phone," I said, my voice hoarse. Milo handed it over. My hands shook as I scrolled. Photos of the lurker, the muffled recording with its clear intent. And then, in one of the diner shots, the man sitting with the stranger wasn't a stranger at all. It was my brother, Liam Monroe. His face was unmistakable. Messy hair, that familiar half-smirk. A wave of suffocation crashed over me, like someone had clamped a hand around my throat. My own brother, raised with me, shared a childhood with me, was sitting with this man talking about something dark. I forced myself to stay calm, copied everything from Milo's phone, photos, recordings, timestamps, onto mine, hands still trembling. Before leaving, I pulled Milo into a tight hug and said, "You saved my life, kid. I owe you everything." Milo looked up, eyes shining. "Be careful, Conrad. I'm scared they'll come back." I nodded, but my mind was chaos. Liam, how could he be involved? Yes, he was in debt, unemployed, life falling apart. But why try to kill me? His own brother. Memories flooded back like a tidal wave. Our unstable childhood, Dad always favoring Liam while pushing me aside. Liam's temper, his jealousy, his impulsiveness. But none of that, no matter how bad, compared to this. I left the park with legs heavy as lead, carrying a horrifying truth that was slowly coming into focus, and the crushing pain of realizing someone in my own family might be part of a plot to murder me. The rain kept falling, Portland shrouded in gray, and my life now felt like a horror movie. I needed answers, but first I had to face this fear. I went back to the same cheap motel from the night before, the one with the flickering neon sign. Once inside the room, I collapsed onto the bed and stared at the stained ceiling. My mind a complete mess from everything Milo had told me and the haunting photos on my phone. I agonized for a long time over whether to go to the police right away. I sat up and paced the tiny room, gripping my phone like a lifeline. The evidence I had. Blurry photos from Milo's old phone, a barely audible recording full of diner background noise, and the word of a homeless 12-year-old. What would the cops say? "Mr. Monroe, this is just guesswork. Blurry pictures, garbled audio, and a street kid who might be making it all up." They'd already ruled it a gas leak, a common accident. If I handed over what I had, they might laugh me off. Or worse, do a half-assed investigation that would tip off whoever was behind it. Liam would know, and if he really was involved, things would get even more dangerous. No, this wasn't enough to accuse anyone. I needed rock-solid proof, not loose fragments. The next morning, I went back to my regular mail route, acting like nothing had happened. I got up early, put on my postal uniform, drank black coffee from the motel's cheap machine. Portland's streets were still wet, the smell of rain-soaked earth mixing with fresh bread from the nearby bakery. I drove the route, dropped off packages, forced a smile when neighbors asked, "Your place burned down, Conrad? You're one lucky guy." I nodded, made small talk, but my heart felt like it was dragging a boulder. Every time I stopped the truck, my thoughts went back to Milo and to Liam. I still couldn't believe the brother I grew up with could be part of a plot to kill me. Liam, 25, jobless, drowning in debt, still living off our parents. We hadn't been close since I moved out, but he'd call every now and then, to check in, or to borrow money. The last time we met, he'd joked around, talked about some new job. Now I realized it was probably a lie. Why would Liam do this? I couldn't find an answer. To protect myself and uncover the truth, I decided to hire a private investigator. I wasn't rich, but my savings could cover it. I searched online and picked a small office downtown. Brown Private Investigations, run by Jack Brown, a retired cop. I called, voice shaking. "I need to see you. It's personal." He set up a meeting for that afternoon. The office was in an old building that smelled of coffee and old paper. Brown was around 50, gray hair, sharp eyes, wearing a plaid shirt. "Sit down, Mr. Monroe. Tell me everything." I sat, hands clenched, and spilled it all. The fire, Milo's text, the photos, the recording, everything the kid had told me. I handed over copies, photos, and audio on a USB and detailed Milo's account. "I think my brother is involved," I whispered, voice breaking. Brown listened, took notes, then nodded. "I'll dig from top to bottom. Upfront fee is $1,000. I'll bill the rest when it's done." I agreed, paid him, and felt a little lighter. At least now a professional was on it. Just 4 days later, my phone buzzed. "Brown. Monroe, I've got preliminary results. Come to the office." My heart was pounding as I rushed over. In the small room that smelled of stale coffee and damp paper, Brown opened his laptop and turned the screen toward me. He explained he'd pulled footage from security cameras around Selwood that I didn't even know existed. "From the neighborhood cameras, this guy shows up near your building multiple times. Hunched posture, dark coat, matches the photos you gave me. And the night of the fire, a camera caught him sneaking around your place with a gas can." I stared at the screen, ice running through my veins. A shadowy figure moving, pouring liquid, then disappearing just before the flames erupted. Brown continued, "That's the same guy who was with your brother at the diner. Name's Victor Klein. Prior convictions for property destruction, did time for arson for hire." I swallowed hard, voice hoarse. "And Liam?" Brown switched to another video, covert footage from a cafe a few miles outside Portland. "I tailed Liam using the address you gave me. Yesterday, he met Victor Klein in person." The video was crystal clear. Liam in a dark corner, face tense, sliding a thick envelope across the table, obviously cash. His voice came through a hidden mic. "Take this and get as far from Portland as you can. No more contact." Klein nodded, stuffed the envelope in his pocket, and left. Hearing the report, my heart felt crushed, like someone was sitting on my chest. I knew Liam was involved, but I never expected it to be this direct, this blatant. He hired Klein to burn my place down, then paid him to disappear. The video was undeniable, but I still couldn't understand why Liam would want me dead. Money? Jealousy? Or something deeper from our messed-up childhood? Brown put a hand on my shoulder. "You want me to take this to the police now? This evidence is solid." I shook my head. I needed time to think. Then I left the office, my mind more chaotic than ever. The rain outside kept falling, but now it felt like tears for the trust I'd lost forever. The following days were pure hell. I went back to the motel, but not a single night brought real sleep. I couldn't focus on anything. The mail route became a burden. I pushed the cart, delivered packages, but my hands shook and my eyes constantly darted around in fear. Every unfamiliar figure on the street made me flinch, picturing Klein lurking with a gas can. I barely ate, cold fast food from roadside joints that I could hardly swallow. My life had turned into a nightmarish loop, waking up afraid, working in panic, and nights filled with questions that had no answers. Why Liam? We were brothers, even if we weren't close, we were still blood. After so many sleepless nights, I knew I couldn't keep this secret alone any longer. Carrying it by myself would slowly kill me. I needed to share it, needed someone I could trust to lean on. And the only person left in my mind was Mom, Penelope Monroe. She had been my rock my whole life, the one person who had never turned away from me. She was 58, a veterinarian on the outskirts of Portland, always warm and patient. I called her, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mom, I need to see you. There's something important I have to tell you." She sounded worried but gentle as always. I just said, "Tomorrow at the cafe near your clinic, okay?" She agreed immediately. The little cafe sat on the outskirts, a quiet place that smelled of freshly ground coffee and toasted bread. It was where we always met when something serious came up, when I decided to leave home, or when I talked about work. I arrived early, sat in the corner booth clutching a hot coffee mug. Rain tapped steadily on the windows, as if crying for me. When Mom walked in, she wore her familiar wool coat, hair in a bun, a warm smile on her face but worry in her eyes. She hugged me tight and whispered, "Conrad, you look exhausted. What's wrong?" I took a deep breath and told her everything. The whole truth. The fire at my apartment, the strange text from Milo, the homeless kid in the park, the photos of the lurking stranger, the garbled recording from the diner with its dark conversation. And most of all, Liam, my own brother, clearly visible in the footage. I showed her the pictures on my phone, zoomed in on Liam's face, my voice breaking. "Liam was sitting with him, Mom. I hired a PI and the video shows Liam paying the arsonist." Mom gripped the edge of the table, her face going pale with shock, her eyes widened, tears rolling down her cheeks. She stood and pulled me into a crushing hug. I could feel her heart racing. "Oh God, Conrad, you almost died and I didn't know anything. I'm so sorry, my boy." She cried and stroked my hair like she did when I was little and got bullied at school. She was terrified that her eldest son had nearly been killed, and that fear made her tremble. I hugged her back, trying to comfort her. "I'm okay, Mom. Thanks to Milo warning me in time." But she shook her head, voice choked. "How could this happen? Liam, your brother. It can't be." After a while, once she'd calmed a little and sat back down with a glass of water, Mom suddenly spoke, quiet but clear. "Lately, I've noticed something strange between your father, Greg, and Liam." They'd whisper in the study, going silent the moment I walked in. I thought it was just men's business, but now... She didn't finish, but it was enough to send a jolt through me like electricity down my spine. I hadn't expected Dad, Greg Monroe, to be involved in trying to harm me. Dad. 61, retired military, rigid, authoritarian, quick-tempered. He'd always controlled everything in the house, and now, from what Mom said, I believed he was part of it. A suffocating feeling rose in my chest, like someone squeezing my throat. At that moment, years of buried memories suddenly flooded back, playing like an old film in reverse. A dark childhood where Liam always got all the favor from Dad, while I was constantly told I was useless, incompetent, a disappointment. "You ruin everything you touch, Conrad," Dad would yell, face red with rage. No matter what Liam did, getting into fights at school, breaking things in the house, blowing money, he was forgiven. The one who got yelled at, grounded, or forced to take the blame was always me. I remember when Liam smashed Grandma's antique vase. Dad scolded me for not watching your brother. When Liam skipped school to hang out, I got locked in my room for setting a bad example. Liam, now 25, impulsive, hot-headed, deep in debt, recently unemployed, and still living off our parents, was always excused. Through all those years of unfair treatment, I had only one refuge: Mom, Penelope. She was warm, patient, protective, shielding me from Dad's belt as best she could, holding me when I was unfairly punished. She taught me to be decent. Son, even if the world turns its back, you still have to live kindly. She taught me to read, fix broken things, cook simple meals. Those evenings when she told stories and stroked my hair were the only light in that dark house. When I left home at 18, I thought I'd escaped that haunted childhood. I moved to Portland, worked hard at the post office, lived completely independently. But Dad's control still followed me. He'd call demanding I send money to help the family. Times are tough. The oldest son has to step up. I obeyed, gritting my teeth, sending whatever savings I could, $200 one month, $300 the next, even while struggling with my own bills and eating frugally. I thought the money was for Mom, for the house. The harsh truth was far uglier. Dad gave it all to Liam to waste. Bars, expensive clothes, nights out with friends. I saw it on rare visits home, Liam driving a new car while the house stayed run down. Whenever I asked where the money went, Greg immediately defended Liam and snapped at me for being stingy. That's your duty as the older brother. You don't get to ask questions. Liam needs it. You help. The more I thought about it, the more bitter it tasted. I'd done everything to keep the peace, to do my duty exactly as Dad demanded. Yet in his eyes, I was still just a burden. All those memories made me realize that decades of unfairness hadn't just created distance. It might have pushed Liam down a far darker path than I ever imagined. I looked at Mom, voice trembling. Mom, I need your help. Watch Liam at home, watch Dad, find out what they're hiding. Is someone else behind this? Mom looked at me, eyes full of tears but resolute. Despite her fear, she nodded without hesitation. I'll do it, son. I'll protect you no matter what. Only I, living in the same house unnoticed, can get close to the truth. She hugged me again, and this time I felt her strength. The fierce strength of a mother's love. I left the cafe feeling a little lighter, but the fear still weighed heavy. The rain had stopped, sunlight breaking over Portland, but inside me everything was still dark. My life now felt like a ticking bomb, and Mom was my last hope. A few days later, on a weekly sunny afternoon, Mom called and asked to meet at our usual cafe. When I arrived, she was already there, her face a mix of exhaustion and torment after days of silent surveillance. She wore her old wool coat, hair in a bun with a few silver strands escaping, dark circles under her eyes as if she hadn't slept. Conrad, my boy, she whispered and hugged me tightly. I could feel her body trembling slightly as if carrying a burden too heavy to bear. Mom, what did you find out? I asked, voice hoarse. She sighed, clutching her purse, face pale under the dim yellow light. I did what you asked. I watched your father and Liam, and I uncovered something horrific. I sat across from her, heart pounding, the air in the room suddenly heavier. Mom spoke slowly, voice low but clear, as if reliving the moment. One evening when your dad and Liam shut themselves in the study, the room where Greg usually reads old newspapers or watches military news, I stood outside the door with my ear pressed against the wood. I heard their entire tense conversation, she said, voice shaking. They thought I was asleep, and I managed to record everything on my phone. She pulled out her old phone and pressed play. Dad's voice, Greg Monroe's hard, commanding tone, crackled through the tiny speaker. That trust fund, $4 million your grandparents set up for Conrad years ago. It activates when he turns 30. If we don't act fast, every cent goes to him and we're left with nothing. I listened, blood turning to ice. A trust fund? $4 million? I had never known about it. My grandparents, who passed away 9 years ago, had always been the warmest part of my childhood. Grandma told fairy tales. Grandpa taught me chess, always saying, "You're our hope, Conrad. But this money." Then Liam's voice cut in, impatient and agitated as always. Dad, the last attempt failed. Klein screwed up. He's demanding more money now. Dad's reply was ice cold. The arson failed because Conrad wasn't home. This time, do it cleanly. Find someone reliable and leave no trace. Stage it like an accident, gas leak, car crash, anything. We can't let Conrad live and take everything." The recording ended with the scrape of a chair and Liam's quiet agreement. I sat frozen, chills running down my spine like ice water had been poured over me. Both my father and my brother were plotting to kill me for $4 million. Not petty jealousy, not a minor dispute. This was murder driven by pure greed. I gripped the edge of the table, mind reeling. Dad, the man I'd feared and respected despite his harshness, was the mastermind. Liam, my brother, was his accomplice. They discussed it as casually as the weather, planning to fake an accident to cover their tracks. If it weren't for Milo, if it weren't for Mom, I'd be dead. Fear and rage made me tremble, tears stinging my eyes, but I held them back. I was even more stunned to realize that my grandparents, the two people who had given me the purest, gentlest love, had cared for me that deeply. They were gone, but their final gift wasn't just money. It was faith that I deserved a decent future. I remembered afternoons at their house, Grandpa teaching me to fix old clocks, Grandma baking cookies. They saw the unfairness from Dad, so they secretly set up the trust for me, for when I turned 30, when I was truly grown. Yet that very gift had become the reason my father and brother wanted me dead. Greed had turned them into monsters. Mom looked at me, eyes full of tears, face twisted with pain. She took my hand, voice breaking. I never imagined the family I spent my whole life building would fall apart because of greed and blind favoritism. I tried so hard to hold it together, but your father, he's always been like this, favoring Liam to the point of madness. She cried, shoulders shaking, and in that moment she looked decades older. Her whole life as a veterinarian had been about healing animals, but her own family was shattered. I placed a hand on her shoulder to comfort her, even though I was burning with pain and anger. "Mom, don't cry. I'm okay. You saved me." I rubbed her back, trying to stay calm. I couldn't let her collapse under this cruel truth. She was my last anchor. If she broke, I'd lose everything. After a long silence broken only by sighs and the sound of traffic outside, I asked hesitantly, "Mom, should I bring this to light? Go to the police with the recordings, the videos, but if I do, the family is finished. Dad and Liam, they'll go to prison." I hesitated, knowing that once I did it, everything would be destroyed. No family left, just pain and loneliness. Mom looked straight at me, eyes red but resolute, and nodded. "We have to, son. It's the only way to protect you. The truth must come out, no matter the cost, even if it means the end of this family's reputation and existence. I won't lose you to their greed and blindness." She squeezed my hand and her strength flowed into me, making me feel steadier. I knew the time had come to face everything, no turning back. The truth I held, the recordings, the videos, the photos, would change my life forever. I hugged Mom again, thanked her, and walked her out. She left with worry on her face but determination in her eyes. I sat alone in the cafe as late afternoon sunlight filtered through the blinds, yet my heart remained cold. $4 million, the gift from my grandparents, had become a double-edged sword. My 30th birthday was approaching, and I wondered what the future held. But first I had to act. My life had become a battlefield, and I was no longer alone. The very next morning, while Portland's sun was still pale after the night's rain, I gathered every piece of evidence. The photos Milo took, the diner recording and the one from Dad's study, Jack Brown's detailed report with the video of Klein receiving money from Liam, and Mom's handwritten statement, describing the strange behavior, the hidden envelopes, and the recording she had captured. I put it all into a thick folder, hands trembling as I organized it. This wasn't just paperwork, this was proof of betrayal, proof of attempted murder. I drove to the office of a lawyer Mom knew, Lawrence Pike, an old college friend of hers whom she had already contacted after our cafe meeting. He was now a well-known criminal attorney in Portland. His office was downtown in a modern glass building that smelled of coffee and legal documents. I walked in, heart pounding, feeling as though I were stepping into the final battle. "Conrad, you look like hell," Lawrence said when he saw me. He was 59, salt and pepper hair, sharp eyes behind glasses. I sat down and slid the folder across the desk. Take a look, everything's in there. Attempted murder by my own father and brother. He flipped through it, his face growing increasingly grave. Photos, recordings, videos, Mom's statement. My God, you're serious. This is huge. I nodded, voice hoarse. They want me dead because of a $4 million trust fund my grandparents left me. The fire wasn't an accident, it was arson. I need you to finalize the file and get it to the authorities as soon as possible. No more cover-ups, no more twisting the truth. Lawrence scribbled furiously, then looked up. I'll handle it today. This case is airtight. Physical evidence, testimony, video. But are you sure? They're still your family. I met his gaze and said slowly, they stopped being my family the moment they decided I should die. He sighed, promised to file everything that same day, and warned me to stay safe. When I stepped out of the office, my heart was heavy, but my resolve burned brighter than ever. It was time to face the root of this tragedy. I decided to return one last time to the house of my father and brother, the suburban Portland home where I had grown up surrounded by unfairness and pain. In my hand was a full copy of the dossier, the document I would place in front of them like an undeniable declaration. The house appeared, a 2-story wooden structure, yellowed lawn, haunted by childhood memories. I parked, took a deep breath, and gripped the folder tightly. This would be the last time I entered this house, as a family member. When I pushed the door open, the familiar smell hit me. Dad's burnt coffee and stale cigarette smoke. But now it made me nauseous. Dad, Greg, was sitting in the living room reading military news, his stern face framed by silver stubble. Liam sat nearby, scrolling on his phone, looking gaunt from debt and unemployment. My sudden appearance made them both freeze. Dad lowered the paper. Liam jerked his head up. But they quickly regained a terrifying calm, as if they had been preparing for this moment. Conrad, why the hell are you here without calling? Dad barked in his usual controlling tone. I stopped in front of them, eyes cold, no longer carrying the fear of my childhood. My heart pounded, but my voice was steady. Dad, Liam, I know everything. The fire wasn't an accident. It was arson, and you two are behind it. Why? Why do you want me dead? My words exploded like a bomb in the quiet living room. Dad flinched, shock flashing in his eyes, then rage took over, face turning red. What the hell are you talking about? How dare you accuse me and your brother? You want to destroy this family. Is this how I raised you? To stand here and slander your own father? He stood, pointing at me, just like when he used to scold me as a kid. Liam went pale, sweat beading on his forehead, but tried to act calm. Bro, you're paranoid. I don't know anything. You're twisting everything. His voice stuttered, eyes darting away, unable to meet mine. I said nothing more. I simply placed the thick folder on the coffee table with a dry thud, like the final nail in a coffin. Look for yourselves, I said coldly. Dad and Liam exchanged a glance. Dad reached for it and opened the folder. As they saw the contents, photos of Klein lurking, the diner recording, the video of Liam handing over the envelope, the PI's report, Mom's statement, and Dad's own recorded voice saying, "Do it cleanly, no traces." Their faces drained of color, turning to panic and terror. Dad collapsed back into his chair, hands shaking as he held the papers. This is fake. You fabricated it all." Liam went white as a sheet, stammering, "No, it's not. It's a misunderstanding. Don't believe this stuff, Conrad." Dad began ranting desperately, voice rising. "Conrad, listen to us. It's all a misunderstanding. Calm down, son. No one sues their own family. We're blood." At that moment, Mom, Penelope, stepped out of the kitchen where she had heard the entire confrontation. She stood there, face calm but filled with disappointment, eyes red from holding back tears. She still wore her cooking apron, but now she looked like a warrior. "Greg, Liam, listen to me," she said, voice steady and cutting through their excuses. "You're not even sorry. You have no intention of fixing what you've done. I heard everything, From the plot to kill Conrad for the trust fund to your whispered plans. She declared clearly without a tremor, I stand with Conrad. I will testify in court and tell the full truth about everything I've heard and seen. The envelopes, the conversations, all of it. Dad instantly roared, face contorted with fury, standing and pointing at her. You traitor! You'd sell out your husband and son. You're destroying this family. Get out of my house right now. His voice echoed like old military commands, but now it sounded weak and hollow. Liam sat silently, head bowed, shoulders trembling. He knew it was over, no way back. He just sat there, pale, clutching his phone, speechless. The living room was suffocating, stale coffee mixed with Dad's ragged breathing. I took Mom's hand, squeezing it so she could feel my strength, and led her out of that rotting house. We walked through the door, leaving behind the shouting, the rage, the accusations. You'll regret this. Ungrateful bastard. Dad screamed after us, but I didn't look back. The suburban wind was cold against my face, but my heart felt strangely light, like I had finally broken free from chains that had bound me for decades. Mom cried beside me, but she walked straight, never turning around. We got in the car and drove away from that house forever. On the road back to Portland, Mom whispered, My boy, I'm with you. I nodded, tears rolling down my cheeks. Thank you, Mom. Now they'll pay for what they did. The days following that confrontation passed in a strange limbo, as if waiting for a storm to break. I took Mom to the motel for the time being. She stayed in the room next to mine, and we spent our time comforting each other. Mom cried a lot, talking about all the years she had tried to hold the family together, only for everything to fall apart now. I listened, encouraged her, and tried to suppress the anger still smoldering inside me. We'll get through this, Mom, I said, even though I was struggling with the pain of betrayal myself. I stayed in touch with attorney Samuel Porter, who had taken over the full case after Lawrence Pike referred him, to keep updated. The file has been submitted to the authorities, he told me over the phone, his voice professional yet sympathetic. They'll move fast. You and your mom should prepare yourselves. I nodded, even though he couldn't see it, feeling like a bomb had just been armed. Once the authorities received Samuel Porter's dossier, the investigation kicked into high gear, faster and more decisively than I had expected. They called me to confirm details, then summoned Greg and Liam for questioning to clarify everything. I could picture it, Dad walking into the station with his rigid ex-military posture, thinking he could intimidate everyone with his barking voice. Liam probably pale as a ghost, sweating, trying to keep up a fake calm. Under pressure from the investigators and solid evidence, confronted with videos, recordings, and financial trails, neither Greg nor Liam could hold their lies together. They started contradicting each other. Dad blamed Liam for screwing everything up. Liam claimed he was just helping Dad a little. In the end, they confessed to everything, the intent to kill me for the trust fund, hiring Klein to set the fire and paying him to disappear. Samuel called me. They admitted it all, Conrad. The evidence was too strong, they couldn't deny it. My heart raced, a mix of relief that the truth was out and pain that my own family had confessed to wanting me dead. At the same time, police tracked down the arsonist, Victor Klein. He was arrested hiding in a cheap motel in a small town outside Portland, just like the one I had stayed in. They found the envelope of cash Liam had given him, and under pressure he spilled everything, confirming he was paid by Liam to torch my apartment and make it look like a gas leak. Samuel passed the news to me, and I sat silently in the motel room, gripping the phone. Klein, the shadowy figure in Milo's photos, was the final piece. The case was airtight: confessions, videos, recordings, financial traces. I thought of Milo, the kid still huddled in the park, and promised myself I'd find him once this was over. My life had felt like a dark novel about to close its most terrifying chapter. With the evidence complete, the trial was scheduled quickly, just weeks later, due to the gravity of attempted murder. Mom and I sat quietly in the public gallery of the courtroom, the air cold with the smell of old wood and legal paper. Light streamed through the windows, but my heart remained dark. Greg and Liam were brought in looking broken. Dad, once so rigid, now gaunt and disheveled with unkempt silver stubble. Liam head bowed, avoiding eye contact, hands cuffed behind his back. They glanced at us, Dad glaring at Mom with hatred, Liam looking away. I held Mom's hand. She squeezed back and whispered, "Stay strong, son. I'm right here with you." The courtroom was packed, reporters, prosecutors, jury, and the tension was thick enough to cut. Attorney Samuel Porter stood and presented the evidence in detail, his voice ringing clearly through the silent room. He showed photos of Klein lurking near my building, played the diner recording of Liam's conversation with him, the video of Liam handing over the envelope, Brown's PI report with neighborhood camera footage, and Mom's recording, Dad's voice saying, "Do it cleanly, stage an accident." Samuel laid it out plainly. Defendant Greg Monroe masterminded the plot. Defendant Liam Monroe was an accomplice, all to seize a $4 million trust fund intended for the victim, Conrad Monroe. He called Milo to testify. The 12-year-old walked in wearing clean clothes I had bought him, voice trembling but honest. "I saw the man pour gasoline and I sent Conrad a warning text." His words caused a stir in the courtroom and I looked at him with boundless gratitude. Penelope, my mother, took the stand, voice calm yet emotional. She confirmed the conversation she had overheard and recorded, detailed the hidden cash envelopes and the strange behavior of Dad and Liam. "I heard my husband and son plotting to kill my eldest son for money," she said, tears rolling down her cheeks but her voice steady. Her testimony destroyed any remaining defense. Their lawyers tried to spin it. Family misunderstanding, Conrad paranoid after the fire. But the evidence was overwhelming. With no way out, Dad and Liam turned on each other to lessen their sentences. Dad snarled that Liam ruined everything. Liam sobbed that Dad was the mastermind, he forced me. But in front of the judge and jury, it was futile. Deliberation was brief. The courtroom fell so silent you could hear breathing. The final verdict was delivered clearly and decisively, the judge's voice like a gavel's strike. Greg Monroe, 22 years imprisonment for masterminding first-degree attempted murder and solicitation of arson. Liam Monroe, 16 years imprisonment for complicity in attempted murder and paying for arson, eligible for parole consideration after 10 years. The arsonist Klein received a fitting sentence, 10 years for carrying out the fire. Dad collapsed forward. Liam broke down sobbing. They were led away. I sat holding Mom's hand tightly, feeling as though a massive weight had been lifted from my chest. When the trial ended, reporters swarmed outside, but Mom and I quietly slipped away. Leaving the courthouse, Mom and I felt relief, like stepping out of a nightmare that had lasted years. Portland's wind was chilly. Late afternoon sun, pale gold on the streets, and for the first time I breathed without feeling suffocated. Mom hugged me. "It's really over, son." We went back to the motel to pack, but I knew we couldn't stay there forever. I rented a small 2-bedroom apartment in Selwood, near the park where it all began, with a little kitchen and a balcony overlooking trees. We started a simple, peaceful life I had never known. Mom cooked, I cleaned. We talked about small things. Books she was reading, my work. No more pressure from Dad, no more sending money into a void. Life became quiet mornings having coffee with Mom and nights of dreamless sleep. One afternoon, as golden sunlight filtered through the leaves, I went back to Selwood Park. Milo was still there, curled up on his familiar bench under the oak. He looked up when he saw me, eyes shining. "Conrad, are you okay?" I sat down and hugged him tightly. "You saved my life, Milo, and now I want to adopt you. Come live with me and Grandma, my mom. You'll have a home, a family." Milo stared in shock, mouth open, then burst into happy tears. "For real? Am I dreaming? I've never had a family." For the first time in his life, he truly belonged. I brought him home. Mom hugged him like her own grandson. "Welcome home, son." Milo smiled shyly, but his eyes glowed. From that day on, the three of us lived together in the little apartment, sharing simple meals, Mom's chicken soup, Milo setting the table, me telling work stories, and quiet evenings by the window watching Portland sink into twilight. Milo went to school. I taught him to read and write. Mom told him animal stories from her vet days. The boy changed, from a homeless kid to a happy, bright student. We became a family forged from trust, kindness, and wounds healed by love. I look back on the past, the fire, the plot, the trial, like a distant nightmare. Life now is simple but complete. Every morning I walk through the park remembering where Milo once sat, and I'm grateful fate brought us together. Then the day finally came, my 30th birthday, on a rare sunny morning in Portland with a light breeze carrying the scent of damp leaves. I received a letter from the bank managing the trust fund my grandparents had set up more than 10 years earlier. Ironically, I delivered it to myself during my mail route. Opening it, my hands trembled. Dear Mr. Conrad Monroe, the $4 million trust established by your grandparents will be activated on your 30th birthday. Please visit the branch to complete the necessary procedures. My heart pounded, a mixture of shock and gratitude. $4 million, the very sum my father and Liam had plotted to kill me for. Now it was mine, not through blood and fire, but through my grandparents' love. I told Mom and Milo over breakfast. Mom hugged me and cried, "Your grandparents always had you in their hearts. This is what you truly deserve." Milo's mouth fell open. "You're rich now? Can I get new books?" I laughed. "Not just books, son, we're going to have a better life." That same afternoon I went to the bank, a sleek glass building downtown, cold with the smell of paperwork and money. The banker, a middle-aged woman named Luna, greeted me with a professional smile. "Mr. Monroe, we've been expecting you. The trust from your grandparents was established in 2010, set to activate when you turned 30. She explained everything. My grandparents had quietly saved from selling land and investing in stocks, earmarking it all for me. I sat there listening, tears stinging my eyes. They had seen Dad's favoritism toward Liam, seen me pushed aside, and secretly done this for me. I signed the documents with a shaking hand and officially gained access to the $4 million. Luna shook my hand. "Congratulations. This is a big gift." I left the bank reeling, feeling as though a new chapter had truly begun. With the money, life for the three of us became more comfortable and secure. I paid off all my debts, the small loans from when I first moved out, lingering bills from the fire. I bought a modest house on the outskirts of Portland, not far from Selwood, with a green backyard, 3 bedrooms, and a spacious kitchen where Mom could cook to her heart's content. A white wooden house with a red-tiled roof and a balcony overlooking a small lake where Milo could run around and Mom could plant flowers. "Is this our house, Dad?" Milo shouted when we moved in, racing through every room discovering his very first bedroom. Mom smiled and ruffled his hair. "Yes, sweetheart, our new home." I started investing in Milo's future as I had promised, opened a college savings account for him, bought books and new clothes, enrolled him in extra classes. The boy, now 13, had grown taller and more confident, calling me Dad with a radiant smile. With the rest of the money, I started a small delivery service, Monroe Delivery, using my postal experience. It began with a few old trucks and a handful of employees, unemployed neighbors from Selwood. I managed, drove when needed, and the business grew quickly. Online deliveries, local mail, creating jobs for more people in the area. "Can I help, Dad?" Milo asked, and on weekends I taught him to sort packages. Mom helped with the books and happily returned to her calling, opening a small veterinary clinic at home, treating neighborhood dogs and cats. Life was now filled with laughter. Evenings playing chess with Milo, Mom telling stories about my grandparents, and a real deep happiness, not from money but from family. But the past wouldn't let me rest completely. One day, 2 letters arrived from prison, one from Greg, one from Liam, requesting a visit. I sat at the kitchen table holding them, hands shaking. Dad's was short. "Son, I want to see you. I have things to say." Liam's was longer. "Bro, I was wrong. Please give me a chance to apologize." I hesitated, not wanting to reopen old wounds. The trial, the sentences, Dad's final scream of, "You traitor, you'll pay for this." I tossed the letters in a drawer and tried to forget, but Mom saw and gently advised, Son, you should go. Not to erase their crimes, but to close the door on what still weighs on your heart. Forgive, so you can be free. She stroked my hand, eyes full of hard-earned wisdom. I hated your father for a long time, but now I'm at peace. You will be too. I thought about it for days, losing sleep again, but finally agreed. I needed to shut that door for good. I visited the prison on a drizzly morning, a gray concrete building on the outskirts, barbed wire, heavy air. After the security checks, I entered the visiting room, glass partition, phones on both sides. Greg and Liam appeared, looking broken and worn after months behind bars. Dad, once tall and imposing, was now thin, hair completely white, eyes dull. Liam's face was puffy, shoulders slumped, no trace of his old impulsiveness. They sat, picked up the phones. Dad spoke first, voice hoarse. I was greedy. I favored Liam blindly and let selfishness guide me. I'm sorry, son. Liam bowed his head, tears falling. Dad pressured me, but I chose to go along. I was complicit. I know that. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. They admitted their guilt, talked about nights in prison filled with regret for letting greed destroy the family. I listened, heart aching but no longer angry. I looked at them, two men who had once been father and brother, now just hollow shells. I forgive you, I said calmly, not to lighten your sentences, but so I no longer carry the weight of hatred. I forgive so I can move on. I didn't erase what they had done, the fire, the plot, nor change their sentences. They would carry those consequences for the rest of their lives. Dad cried, "Thank you, son." Liam nodded silently. The visit was brief. I stood and left without looking back. As I stepped out of the prison, rain still falling, my mind felt lighter. Like I had finally closed the painful door to the past. The cold wind hit my face, but my heart was warm. Driving home, I thought of Mom and Milo, knowing my new life had truly begun and everything behind me was now just a lesson. The house waited with the smell of chicken soup and laughter, a place where the past could no longer cling. Time passed like gentle breezes through Portland, carrying the breath of new seasons. My company, Monroe Delivery, continued to grow steadily, far beyond what I had ever imagined when I started with a few old trucks in a tiny garage. Demand for delivery services surged with the explosion of e-commerce, from small individual packages to large shipments from local companies. The staff grew from 5 to 20, mostly neighbors from Selwood I had known from my postal days. People who had once been unemployed or struggling now had stable jobs, and I felt proud watching them laugh during breaks. During a contract signing with a new partner, a major logistics firm downtown, I met Reese Bennett. She was 29, an operations manager with glossy brown hair tied neatly back and deep green eyes. Reese was sharp, calm, always analyzing problems logically yet never lacking warmth. She often asked about my employees and cared about how we supported those in need. Our first meeting was in a glass-walled conference room filled with the scent of coffee. She shook my hand firmly. "Mr. Monroe, this contract will benefit us both. I love how your company puts community first." I smiled and briefly told her my journey, from mailman to business owner. She listened, eyes reflecting understanding. "You've been through a lot, haven't you?" she asked softly, and in that moment I felt a strange connection, like meeting someone who could see the invisible scars inside me. Our subsequent collaborations brought us closer. From meetings about delivery schedules to quick coffees after work, Reese gradually opened up. She told me about her life, raised by a single mother, working hard to climb to management, and her love of early morning runs to stay calm amid work stress. My own honesty, stories about Mom, about Milo, about building a family from ashes, made her open up too. Our feelings grew through work sessions, conversations about books. She loved adventure novels just like me, and simple everyday moments, grabbing lunch at roadside diners or helping each other fix a flat tire in the rain. One late evening after a meeting, as Portland's rain poured down, we took shelter under an awning. She looked at me and said, "Conrad, you're a good man. In this chaotic world, you make me believe in kindness again." My heart raced and I knew I had fallen in love, a gentle, genuine love without the drama of my past. A year later, we married in a small, warm ceremony at Selwood Park, the very place where everything had begun with Milo. Only Mom, Milo, and a few close co-workers were there to witness. Portland's air was crisp, golden leaves drifting down, but the atmosphere overflowed with joy. Reese wore a simple white dress, I wore a gray suit, and we exchanged rings beneath the familiar old oak tree. Mom cried as she hugged Reese. "Welcome to the family, my daughter. I wish you every happiness." Milo, the ring bearer, grinned ear to ear. "Dad, now I have a mom too." Colleagues clapped and cheered, and the reception at home with homemade cake and cheap wine was filled with laughter. On our wedding night, Reese whispered, "You saved me from loneliness, Conrad." I held her close, knowing this love was the reward for all the years of pain. Not long after, we welcomed a little girl we named Dahlia Monroe, inspired by the resilient flower that symbolizes rebirth. Dahlia was born on a lightly rainy morning, with bright eyes like mine and Reese's gentle smile. Holding her for the first time in the hospital, tears rolled down my face, a tiny, pure life that made me forget every shadow of the past. "Daddy promises to protect you," I whispered, kissing her forehead. Our family grew fuller. Grandma Penelope, big brother Milo, Mom Reese, and me, a proud father. We moved into a larger house on the outskirts with a lush backyard swing set, Mom's flower garden, and a pink pastel nursery for Dahlia filled with wooden toys. The new home rang with laughter. Dahlia's baby cries, Milo teasing her, Reese singing lullabies, and Mom telling fairy tales. I never thought I'd have this. A real home where waking up each morning was pure joy. Mom was healthier and more at peace than ever. She fully retired from veterinary work but still treated neighborhood pets for free. She delighted in her grandchildren, carrying Dahlia around the garden, teaching Milo to cook, and telling Reese stories of my childhood. "I once feared I'd lost everything," she said one evening by the fireplace. "But now I have it all, my son, daughter-in-law, granddaughter, and grandson." She lived a serene life, reading, gardening, smiling at small joys. Milo had grown into a 15-year-old who studied hard in high school and dreamed of becoming an engineer. He always made time for Dahlia, pushing her on the swing, reading to her, protecting her like a real big brother. "No one will ever bully Dahlia," he declared, and I saw him becoming the kind, responsible brother I had always wished Liam could have been. Watching the three of them, Reese, Mom, Milo, laughing in our new home with Dahlia crawling across the floor, I realized how incredibly fortunate I was to have escaped the darkness of the past and found this present. The company thrived, the family was happy, and I, from a lonely mailman, had become a husband, father, and son. One early autumn day, as golden leaves began to fall, we visited my grandparents' graves at the cemetery on the outskirts. The wind was cool, leaves covering the stone paths, but the sky was unusually clear, like a blessing from above. We brought fresh flowers, yellow daisies, Grandma's favorite, and stood before their headstone. I thought of everything I had been through, an unjust childhood filled with undeserved scolding from Dad. The night I escaped death thanks to Milo's text, the betrayal when I learned of the plot for the trust fund, and the hands that pulled me from the abyss, Mom's protection, Milo's rescue, Reese's love. I held Dahlia's tiny hand, she was one now, babbling Dada, and looked at Reese holding Milo, Mom quietly praying. These people had built my new life. From ashes, they created a solid home. I silently thanked my grandparents for their final gift, not just the money, but faith in kindness and a decent future. I understood that the past, however cruel, had taught me to cherish the present and become a better person. Without that suffering, I wouldn't know how to value this happiness, wouldn't be grateful to Milo for saving me, wouldn't love Reese so deeply, wouldn't teach Dahlia about kindness. I took away a message for myself. Greed can destroy a family as Dad and Liam did, turning blood into enemies, love into conspiracy. But kindness can build a far more beautiful family, as Milo, Mom, Reese, and Dahlia did, forging unbreakable bonds from broken pieces. I also left a message for my daughter and for Milo. For when they grow up, live kindly. Never let hatred guide you. For hatred blinds, as it did Dad and Liam. Be grateful to those who love you even if they once were strangers like Milo. And always choose what is right no matter how hard. As Mom chose to stand with me, even when it cost her everything. Dahlia, Milo, I whispered at the graves. I'll teach you that. When we left the cemetery, I felt light as a cloud. The past stayed behind while the future stretched wide, bright, and full of hope. Golden leaves fell around our steps, the autumn wind carrying new beginnings. Back home, Dahlia giggled as Milo swung her. Reese hugged me. You seem happier than usual today. I smiled, because I have everything. My life, from darkness to light, was now proof of the power of kindness, and I knew whatever the future held, I would live with kindness, just as my grandparents taught me.